humor tell us about God? What does it tell us about each other? And why are we so crazy serious in church? If we think that humor and laughter are part of the way we were created. So this is fairly lighthearted. Well, it may be a lighthearted series of thinking about about laughter and what it means to be joy-filled people. Is that helpful of what the overall purpose was? So we talked. We chose 5 Sundays, 4 Sundays in August, and the first Sunday in September. So the first Sunday, which I think people started to explain this, but I don't know if everyone was here. So the first Sunday is kind of an introductory Sunday, and Karen will be preaching, and it will be exploring. Well, Karen, do you want to just say what it will be?
It's going to be a culmination of, it's going to be like an introduction to the whole series and how humor is tied into Scripture and our lives. I'm going to pull from James Martin's book, Scripture itself, and the interaction from the drama. Oh, and I wanted to do a little interactive piece with thought balloons, but we can talk about that later.
So then the second Sunday is using the scripture text of Abram and Sarah and learning that they are going to have a baby and naming that baby Isaac, which is laughter. And that I will be preaching that, and that is going to be exploring. We'll explore laughter and the gift, God's gift of laughter to us, but also that sometimes we laugh because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. And I wonder why Sarah laughed at age 99 of hearing that she's going to have a baby. Because if I was told that I was going to have a baby right now at age 50, I would be crying. But so exploring that. The third Sunday is the story of Jonah. And Jonah is a very comedic book in itself. And the Hebrew writer, storyteller, uses all sorts of comedic elements in that story. And then the fourth Sunday is something about Jesus, and I'm not sure what it is yet. Probably exploring stories that Jesus told and what is humorous about that, or what is the laughter in those stories. And that will probably be more of an audience participation kind of thing. And then the last Sunday is this culmination of laughter and joy is an enactment or an embodiment of the great heavenly feast of the abundance of that wedding feast, and looking at the scripture of the wedding of Cana and celebrating our church community, ourselves and our church community. So that's the overview of the 5 Sundays. We brought Jeff in to talk with us at different points and with different people, and he suggested getting together a group to help him work with a scripture. And that has evolved over time. And so that's how this kind of thing is working, is evolving. And in fact, we now are thinking about dealing with different scriptures than what we first thought we were going to deal with. So do you want to, I don't know if we need to explain that, or if we just jump in with what you have.
I'd just like to add one thing. I had a conversation with a church member a couple of weeks ago talking about this, and they said, well, what's the purpose of this series? And I said, well, we're going to prove that holiness does not exclude humor.
Mhm.
If you want a nutshell, that's my nutshell.
Okay.
We can just, you can dive right into how we're doing, how we're going to look at the scripture if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Now, should I go grab some Bibles?
They don't need to read along.
They don't need to read along. Here we
The
are.
important thing is to not read along. It's more important to listen. So I'll give you I'll give you some of these later, but here's what we're going to do. I'll just read through what I want you to listen for. You should read the text aloud. And you can have separate people read different versions if you want. You can do that. If you don't want to read, you don't want to read along. You want to, because we all read at a different pace. So it's important that we just listen rather than read along. Don't try to figure out the meaning of the story. If it's a familiar story, what sounded different this time? Was it interesting? Was it strange? Was it funny? This is okay. Lightning will not strike you if you find what's funny in the Bible. The Bible is the story of God's people in relationship. Real people, in being so, they had a sense of humor, as we do. Who were the characters? Sometimes we look at the named ones, as is read. Who were the unnamed characters? Like I often use the example in the wedding of Cana. While they're not named, there would have been the caterers and the uncles and brother-in-laws, and sometimes specifically things. So you think about who else was there. The flower people, the band. So who are the unnamed characters? Be creative and use your God-given gifts of imagination.
The winemaker.
Who are the people that could have or should have been in the story? What is the conflict? In most good plays or stories, there is a conflict. It's what holds your interest. How many conflicts can you find? And the last one is, what is a crisis? What is a predicament? Is the hero in trouble? Will someone lose the farm? Will someone die? All those kind of things. Now, and we will write as we read through this and listen. We'll write down your ideas. I always say we want to trust your instincts. We don't always want to trust our first draft. And we will put every idea up there and find out where it collectively goes. The end result of this would be to create a reader's theater that, whether all of you are involved or not, that you could be part of this process and not be part of the reader's theater on that given Sunday. But you don't have to memorize anything. There'll be a script you can hold and look at the words. And we will probably have one read through, one rehearsal prior to that Sunday, probably that week, just so we can get a sense of phrasing and timing and all those kind of things. But there will be a script in hand, so if you're worried about memorization, that's not part of this. So that's a lot to digest. Mostly, we want to listen. If you want to get other Bibles, you can for other versions, but for now, there's a lot here. I'm not sure that I'm going to read the entire thing right away, because there's 41 verses. We're talking about Jesus and healing a man born blind. In the text is from John chapter 9. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the task assigned us by the one who sent us. The night is coming and no one can work. While I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. Then he spit on the ground, made mud with saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. His neighbors and others who knew him as a blind beggar asked each other, isn't this the man who used to sit and beg? Some said he was. Others said, no, it just looks like him. But the beggar kept saying, yes, I am the same one. They asked, who healed you? What happened? He told them. The man they called Jesus made mud and spread it over my eyes and told me, go to the pool and wash yourself. So I went and washed. Now I can see. Where is he now, they asked. I don't know. Then they took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees, because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus made the mud and healed him. The Pharisees asked the man all about it. So he told them, he put the mud over my eyes, and when I washed it away, I could see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man Jesus is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath. Others said, but how could an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs? So there was deep division of opinion among them, just like church. Then the Pharisees again questioned the man who had been blind and demanded, what's your opinion about this man who healed you? The man replied, I think he must be a prophet. Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and could now see. So they called in his parents. They asked him, is this your son? Was he born blind? If so, how can he now see? His parents replied, hey, we know this is our son and that he was born blind, but we don't know how he could see or healed him. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders, who had announced that anyone saying Jesus was the Messiah would be expelled from the synagogue. That's why they said, he's old enough. Ask him. So, for the second time, they called in the man who had been blind and told him, God should get the glory for this because we know this man Jesus is a sinner. I don't know whether he is a sinner, the man replied, but I know this. I was blind, now I can see. But what did he do, they asked. How did he heal you? Look, I told you once, didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? Then they cursed and said, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from. Why, that's very strange, the man replied. He healed my eyes, and yet you don't know where he comes from? You know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he's ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done it. You were born a total sinner. Are you trying to teach us? And they threw him out of the synagogue. I just stopped short there. That's 34 verses. Whether we need to try to tackle all of that, I don't know. But I want to just go through the process of the things. What who are the characters? Who did you hear? That's a blind guy. Who else is there?
His parents.
His parents. Blind guy's parents. Keep going.
Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus was there.
Disciples.
Disciples.
Pharisees.
It's interesting. It's not in front of you. All of a sudden, you have to think about it differently. Pharisees.
So his name, or his neighbors, just like,
Neighbors are there.
yeah, the people with him, the basically saying that.
His neighbors?
Yeah, I know.
Neighbors. More. He said Pharisees. That's good. That's good for now. So we don't know exactly where he's at.
In the synagogue.
And outside, right. So who are some of the unnamed characters that aren't necessarily talked about in the story, but
The crowd, if they're not people.
there's crowd,
Observers.
observers, general hubbubbers.
Busybodies.
What was that?
Busybodies.
Busybodies. Yeah, well, there would be. There would be busybodies. I mean, you know, if someone's spitting, making mud, healing people, they're busybodies.
How did the story start? How did you hear the first line?
As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth.
So Jesus saw him.
Jesus saw him.
Maybe there's someone there from disease control
Lord,
and watches him spit
Say
in
that
the
again,
mud.
Karen?
Maybe there's someone there that's from like disease control or whatever, and he watches Jesus spit in the mud and has a fit about that.
Disease control.
Or who are
Yeah.
who are those people who? Yeah.
How about the friendly dust money?
See that we.
Well, yeah.
the National Health Association.
Yeah, but there's also.
WHO. WHO.
Yeah.
World Health Organization. That's ironic.
We got some unnamed crowd. Those you about it. There's a lot of named people. What's the conflict?
Well, the big conflict is who is Jesus. I mean, who is Jesus? But there's a whole lot of other conflicts.
Well, yeah, there can be more than one.
Yeah, the Sabbath.
Who is Jesus? The Sabbath is a conflict. I mean, what's happening on the Sabbath?
If the man is actually the same person before.
The identity.
Who sinned?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Who sinned?
Who sinned?
Why did he?
Is there any doubt he was blind before?
How did Jesus know he was blind?
Huh?
From birth. So he said. You blind from birth.
He was a beggar.
Oh, that could be fake. That could be fake news.
I think there's somebody from Jerusalem Post there.
Yeah, who recorded this?
Let's make Moses great again.
Yeah, that's great again. And they did.
Okay. Chris says that we know he was blind because he was a beggar.
Because, well, we know there's something wrong with him, right?
But he must not have left home. He couldn't leave home. Probably.
He probably would have said arms for blind or something like that. That's their cop out.
Well, we talked about what the predicament is. We got blind. Is the hero in trouble? Will someone lose the farm? Will someone die?
Who gets to hold the sin? Like, who's the sinner here? Is it the blind man, or is it Jesus, or is it the Pharisees? I think that's a big question.
Who's the sinner, right? Who's the
Yeah.
or blind?
Are we still looking at conflict? Like
You can look at all of it. You
he
can,
becomes very exasperated because nobody's listening.
the blind man is exasperated.
It's like, come on, guys, I've said this. No other way to phrase it.
Anybody else like these peppers? Yes.
You want these? You want these peppers?
What peppers? Oh, yes. I'll have some.
Well, you can share if there's more. No, these peppers, these hot peppers, jalapeno. Oh, whatever. Here's one for you guys.
I had one. I didn't want to.
Oh, you can have another one.
Four more.
They're sweet peppers.
What are they?
No, they're not.
They're not sweet.
They're hot. They're hot. You like them? Hot pickle. No, not really hot.
What were some of the?
Well, okay, isn't there this thing, there's part of the conflict is who's going to get kicked out of the synagogue, right? I mean, are the parents going to get kicked out, or is he going to get kicked out? Expelled. Expelled.
Who will get
On their word. Excommunicated.
expelled, shunned, and otherwise booted?
There's conflict actually between the parent and the child.
Oh. Okay.
Ask him. He's of age, but they don't want to get involved.
Well, right? It's talking about between parent
And the son.
and the son.
Yeah, the parents are like, why is he dragging me into this? This is his thing. He
So
did
they
this.
don't want to get kicked out.
They don't want to get kicked out. He's responsible.
Can we assume that he doesn't venture very far? He's probably still living at home. Maybe.
How old is he?
He's of age.
Oh,
What does that
Is that
mean?
20?
Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. He's of age.
He's 21?
What was of age know this?
Yeah, right.
14? Yeah, 14.
I kind of like the idea that it's never really answered. It just says he's of age.
Oh, well, he could have been 15.
True. He was of age. That's interesting though, because it becomes he is of age. From a writing perspective,
Well, what does that mean?
exactly. That's why it's interesting. Because some of those things are left unresolved. And in the writing of the reader sheet, it's just like, he's of age. What does that mean? I don't know. He's of age. Well, of course. What do you mean by that? Well, I think I know what I mean.
The intellect by which he takes on the Pharisees is phenomenal for a 15-year-old.
Yes. He takes on the Pharisees.
He's bold.
For a newly sighted guy? Yeah.
Well,
I just got these eyes.
Now I know that I look good.
Yeah. I'm of age and you look at me.
Some got the blue and the brown. What color?
Yeah, what? Are they hazel? What? Never says that they were closed. It's just that you could see. Just most people that are blind, their eyes are not closed. Unless there's something else going on. You haven't, I read this from A New Living.
Oh.
Just because I just picked one.
Do we have a message around?
Oh, I have a children's Bible.
Anything will work. Just go ahead
For Grace, she's reading up.
and have someone else read it. I just read, I didn't go into the resolve later on as far as from verse 35 to 41. We just stopped early just because of so much. So, yeah, somebody else read the chapter 9, 1 through 34. 34, please.
As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been born blind. His followers asked him, "Teacher, whose sin caused this man to be born blind? His own sin or his parents' sin?" Jesus answered, "It is not this man's sin or his parents' sin that made him blind, be blind. The man was born blind so that God's power could be shown in him. While it is daytime, we must continue to do the work of the one who sent him. The night is coming, and no one can work at night. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After Jesus said this, he spit on the ground and made some mud with it. He put the mud on the man's eyes. And then he told the man, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam." Siloam means sent. And so the man went to the pool. He washed and came back, and he was able to see. The people had seen this man begging before, and they and the man's neighbors said, "Look, this is the same man who always sits and begs." Some said, "Yes, he's the one." But others said, "No, he's not the same man. He only looks like him." So the man himself said, "I am the man." They asked him, "What happened? How did you get your sight?" He answered, "The man named Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. And he told me to go to Siloam and wash. And so I went and washed and came back seeing." And they asked him, "Where's the man?" The man answered, "I don't know." Then the people took to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Jesus had made mud and healed his eyes for the Sabbath day. And so the Pharisees asked him, "How did you get your sight?" He answered, "He put mud in my eyes and I washed and now I can see." And some of the Pharisees were saying, this man does not keep the Sabbath day. He is not from God. Others said, but the man who is a sinner cannot do miracles like this. And so they could not agree with each other. They asked the man again, what do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened. And the man answered, he is a prophet. The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and could now see again. And so they sent for the man's parents and asked them, is this your son? You say that he was born blind? Then how does he now see? His parents answered, we know that he is our son, and we know that he was born blind, but we don't know how he can now see. We don't know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He's old enough to answer for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews. The Jews had already decided that anyone who said that Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. That is why his parents said, he's old enough, ask him. For the second time, they called the blind man who had been blind. And they said, you should give God the glory by telling the truth. We know that this man is a sinner. He answered, I don't know if he's a sinner, but one thing I know, I was blind, now I can see. They asked him, what did he do to you? How did he make you see again? He answered, I've already told you that, but you would not listen to me. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his followers too? Then they insulted him and said, you are his follower. We are followers of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from. The man answered, this is a very strange thing. You don't know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We all know that God does not listen to sinners, but God listens to anyone who worships and obeys him. Nobody has ever heard of anyone giving sight to a man born blind. If this man was not from God, he could do nothing. They answered, you are born full of sin, and they're trying to teach us, and they threw the man out.
Nobody, first time around, nobody mentioned spitting. Did we?
No, but is that a conflict, or we just want to mention it?
Well, I don't know, because it's something that was going on. Spitting is a pretty significant thing in the story. The mud making of the spit.
It takes an awful lot of lava to make mud.
It does. And
You might assume there was some dirt to be in the photos.
true,
So when,
but I mean, still,
when did you spit?
you know, whenever, yeah, you know, what are you doing, Jesus? I mean, you know the sound of someone spitting.
Well, and it's hot.
It's hot,
In his culture, I'm assuming he's sort of dry.
right?
He's dry. Maybe it's a miracle that he had spit.
Well, like, when you're not
Miraculous spit.
when you're not allowed to work on the Sabbath, like I realized there were certain rules set out in like the Hebrew, like whatever law of like certain things you could do, but why is like spitting not one of them? Like, or like making mud and putting it on someone's eyes. They were like, that's not allowed. That's like rule number 523. And you can't. No, I know, but like,
Well, you're saying that spitting should have been a rule. I mean,
no, I'm just saying like the miracle is the thing they're mad about, but and the miracle is like doing work, but how? There's no rules about that.
Producing spit is what
Yeah. I mean, there's even miracles that work, but like, I don't think there's any.
one thing that stuck out to me was one thing that stuck out to me this time was at the setting is this outside a synagogue. That's the setting.
Yeah.
We had that before. I'm not sure. That seems to be kind of significant to the context that
so it happens outside the synagogue, and then they get kicked out of the synagogue.
What happens in the synagogue stays in the synagogue.
So it happened outside the
It
synagogue,
happened outside the
but they didn't
synagogue.
go back in the synagogue.
But the people,
The
the neighbors
culture.
are the ones who took him into the synagogue.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They took him to the Pharisees.
And then he
Come
figured
into the
out.
Right.
So it starts outside the synagogue, he was inside the synagogue,
Outside, it's inside,
and then he's kicked out of it.
and then it's outside.
Early on, Jesus is recognized as a teacher.
But it is, he's recognized as a teacher.
They say, you know, who is this man? But early on in the first verse or two, it's like,
They call it that.
teacher. His followers asked him, teacher, whose sin caused this man to be born? So is he being recognized as, you know, having knowledge?
The disciples recognized that.
No, who's asking this? His followers asked him.
Who, say that again? Whose followers?
It said his followers asked him, so that must be the disciples asking. Teacher, they recognize him as a teacher. Whose sin caused this man? You know,
Where's that?
Wave again.
It's verse 2.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
No,
You're asking why. We talk about why? Line from birth, identity, line man is that right? You say,
Who sinned? You're there about 6 down.
who sinned? Okay, yeah. And talk about why is he wrong?
You mentioned the word identity. There's lots of finger pointing in this. Lots of finger pointing. Like, you know, Jesus, they look at the man, they point at him. Where is he now? I don't know. Who did this? I don't know. Get his parents. I mean, there's just a lot of finger pointing identity. Who did what, when, and how, and a lot of
Are they passing the buck or not?
What?
Are they passing the buck, Karen, or not?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Are they passing the buck on this, or are they just?
Yeah, I think everybody is. I think the parents are like, I don't know. Like, you know, they pass the buck. Someone passes it to the parents. All they can do is identify them. They can't even say why or who. And then the Jewish leaders are like, okay, well, if you don't know, then who knows? And then someone else is like, well, Jesus is a sinner. And they're like, wait, no, he's not. We know not to be that way. And the man himself is just like, you know what, people, this whole thing, he healed me. Can you not see that? You know? And here I am. I can see, and you can see that I can see. Why is this not apparent? And are you? And then all of a sudden, are you trying to teach us? You know, and they dismiss everything because they can't make sense of it all. There's too many hats being moved around, or too many fingers, too many bucks being passed.
It's like a circular firing squad of accountability.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like if you had a buck in the
Right.
room, that's what would happen. It would get passed from the man, from the beggar to Jesus, to the parents, to the leaders, and then back from the leaders to to Jesus, then back to the man again. I mean, it's just it's like a game of hot potato. Nobody wants to hold on to it.
no one wants to hold on to the
The
responsibility.
hot potato, you know? And then no one wants to say who's got the sin, you know? But yet he's
Who's
still
got the sin?
who's got the sin, right? He
That
couldn't
could be a
possibly have healed. He's got
That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens when you're writing these readers theaters. All of a sudden, it's like it could be a game. Who's got the sin? And then you sometimes you write it from those perspectives, and that's why you do this whole exercise, because then all of a sudden it's like, I never thought about it that way. Yeah. That's great. So
Could one of the characters be a reporter
yeah,
from the Jerusalem
anything's open.
Yeah.
Anything's open. I mean,
asking some of these questions,
sure.
pounding it?
And since we're doing it as a reader's theater, almost like a radio theater kind of thing, we can even, this story probably doesn't have it as much, but you can always designate somebody as a sound effects person, who could also be, and Jesus spit on his eye.
It's going to be a hefty this year.
You know?
It's got to be
I think, well, yeah, it's got to be a little wetter than that, I know. That seems to be a bit much.
Well, I'm still stuck. I don't know how to say this. I'm still stuck on the spit. Because if I recall, well, I'm thinking I have an Orthodox Jewish friend. She runs a business down in Spring Valley, New York, and I cannot shake her hand. She is that Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not allowed to touch her. I can shake her husband's hand.
Right.
He can turn around and shake her hand for me.
Right.
But in those days, this whole idea of when you eat with this hand, you don't eat with this hand, and you, you're ritually unclean, and there's body fluids flying all over the place. It's just, no, I mean, spit. The whole thing is surface stuff. Did he use that?
That was the one that he used.
Yeah.
It would have been accustomed to hearing people spit. I mean,
I guess.
And because they would have had, I don't know, dust and camel hair coagulating. An early camel hairball.
I don't know, Rich, when you were starting to tell that story, I thought there was going to be a punchline. I know I don't have it yet. That Jewish friend whose hand I can't shake, and I was waiting for a punchline.
I mean, there is, there's a lot of truth to all those kind of things. So how do we deal with? We don't want to try to be accurate. We're not trying to distort the story at all, but we are trying to bring it in a different light. And all. So sometimes we'll do some explanation ahead of time. I don't know whether Rachel would. But one thing we probably will not do initially is we probably will not read the scripture first. The idea would be you could say what it's going to be that Sunday. And inevitably somebody would probably read along. I don't see this in there. Okay. I don't know that we want to read it afterwards either.
Let it stand on its own.
Just kind of let it be on its own. And then someone else, they can read it on their own when they go, oh, I mean, that's really interesting. Like, oh, yeah, now I see that in between those lines.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's two concepts of exposition. One, believers don't believe it. So their evidence is calling his parents, which I find interesting, that I'm going to believe the parents.
Right.
I'm not going to believe him. Secondly, the parents don't want to answer. Why? Fear of the Jews. But the Jews trust them. Give the answer.
Right.
And what do you felt like? You like?
Do I have it? Asking your parents? I don't want to do it.
You're saying the religious leaders expect that the parents are going to tell the truth.
They don't. The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and now he could see.
Right.
Did they believe he was blind from the beginning, or?
They said they didn't believe he's blind and they didn't believe he could see. They think it's all made up.
They didn't believe either one.
You could see the whole time.
But if they ask the parents, they'll tell us the truth.
So then they got a problem because the parents say he's our son, yes, and he was blind from birth.
What was the pool's name?
Parents defer to child. I remember that day. Yesterday, my parents deferred to me.
Because I was of age.
I just turned 57. So we talked about a reporter. Is there other things?
I found it interesting that he identifies or acknowledges, he must be acknowledging that he's now a follower. Because he says, do you want to become a follower also? Or something like that.
And they're still in the let's make Moses great again camp. Blind guy becomes a follower. It basically ends in the track. At the corner. And in whites. It goes crazy. Anything else? That's apparently I got that. The child. Who's got the sin? Characters. This is unnamed characters. I mean, the other thing we can do too with this kind of thing is it's always nice to have a. Do you think there'll be more people than this, or do you think this is? I just need to know a little bit.
I think, well, I know Dennis can't be part of it because he's not here. And JW, are you here that Sunday? Yeah. You're preaching. So we're going to have to bring in some other people.
Okay.
Like, I mean, some people I invited but aren't.
Well, that's okay,
like,
and we can blend
like
some people
Andy
into being like crowd noise, like, you know, that stuff is always marvelous that they can be part of.
What's it like beside synagogue? I mean, what's the physical setting? What's it look like? Anybody know?
Well, I went to temple. The temple has the regulations up that if you're a Gentile, you can't go this far and all those kinds of things.
So I meant the landscape around the synagogue. What's going on? Are there market stalls or plain?
Oh, no,
Outside, you mean?
Outside.
yeah, it's like a
Like a busy street.
It's just like a building.
Okay.
I mean, what's from an archaeological perspective?
It's just one of the buildings in the village.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look any different than anything else? No, we don't know.
Construction.
Right. So was there something that set it apart? Or you just got to know what this is? There must have been some kind of different.
I just wondered if the traffic flow outside was the same, you know, the horse and the buggies and the cars and the sheep or the cow, whatever.
I can describe more of the inside than I can the outside.
Yeah.
So the outside,
Well, like, even are the streets wide or are they narrow? If they're narrow, if they're narrow, you don't need very many people for it to feel like it's a crowd.
The streets were always narrow back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't.
They put white cars.
right.
Just not for a donkey cart.
Or two to pass. Right. But they wouldn't need anything wider than that. So what traffic? Traffic.
What we haven't said is children. There has to be children running around everywhere.
Say that again?
There has to be children running around.
Children. Yeah. I don't mean to put the mark out of business about it. It's just the crowd. Children. Animals.
Boys.
They're probably worse than animals.
Animals, right?
Around and they like watch them do this. No, and then they like all go over and they're like all sitting in the mud. And they're like, oh,
Okay, you got it.
Yes, say that again. So once Jesus, all the kids were spinning in the mud. Was it? Hey, you got to do
I
this.
was thinking like,
Hey, Polly, come over here. Give me your eyes.
Yes. Like, okay, let me explain.
You're supposed to spit on the ground first, not on my face. Children.
Well, you started, Lydia, you started that by saying that you imagine a group of boys following Jesus.
But just like following around and then they see him do it and they're like, they're cool or whatever. Right. And then they're all imitating him.
Yeah, what would have happened with that? Yeah. Children, boys and girls.
But he did a very sacred thing with that spit and mud.
Right.
He anointed his eyes. And so what kind of message are you giving the Pharisees who are watching somebody do a very sacred thing and doing it with something so
earthy and visceral. Spit and dirt.
What is there a message there?
Spit and dirt.
Oh. Oh, wait, I'm just kidding, Ollie.
Go back to the creation story.
Well, that's what I was wondering, like the creation story,
You got
right? So
water.
you got,
The creation story, you got water and earth. Two fundamental things.
Water and earth.
And Jesus is using water and earth.
Water and earth.
Creates.
So it's coming back around, recycling back around to something?
Oh,
I like Lydia's idea. I can imagine parents sitting around saying, "Stop that! Don't do that." And the kids are like, "Well, no, he just did it. Why can't we do it? We're gonna spit in the mud too and pretend we're gonna heal each other." And everyone's covered with mud.
Always stop spitting on your brother.
Yeah, stop spitting on your brother.
Stop spitting on your brother. Mom!
Only Jesus can spit on his brother.
Only Jesus.
only Jesus can spit on people.
Yeah.
That you got there.
Stop spitting on your brother.
So I don't know if you think of the story differently than you did 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of it. Obviously, it's something that's a text that's kind of well known for us. It's not an obscure text, but if you have more, that's great. Otherwise, I can work with this, and I will write something that encompasses as much of this as I possibly can.
Awesome.
In a cohesive manner. So what do we have? We have 45 minutes that morning?
Well, Karen, how much time?
No, how much
time do we
Actually, that
have?
would be helpful. I mean, I don't want it to go too long because it loses its effectiveness.
Right.
Is this a substitute for the sermon, or does it prelude the sermon?
I think it was to prelude the sermon.
And so instead of reading scripture.
Right.
So I know scripture reading usually takes about, depending on what it is and who's doing it, it would take as much as
30 seconds.
2 minutes to
It'll be longer than that. It'll be longer than that. I mean, I would try to keep it around 10. Would be and I won't know that.
I've seen some people do it so fast that I don't think they stop to breathe. I know people who seem to do nothing but exhale.
And hopefully we get some laughs.
Okay, 10 minutes. Would you really do a sketch for 10 minutes? A reader's theater for 10
Does
minutes?
that seem long to you?
It does seem long to me.
I'm just saying that I'm hoping it's not really that long, but if it's engaging, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But what really matters is if it's going to be, like you say, engaging for the audience.
Right.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I see a lot going on here. I definitely see this. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of action. I think 10 minutes would do it to send the message and get some laughs and introduce the characters. And
Okay.
yeah,
Right, so, I mean, what I would wind up doing is taking some of it. I'll try to make it the best I can for the 10 minutes, and I might have to take some things out. I don't know what. I mean, the disease control. I don't know.
One question to you, Karen, is how many minutes do you want for your sermon?
oh, I don't care. As long as we're sending a good message. I mean, I haven't written it yet, so there's still time. So I can work with Jeff on that for sure. I'm definitely flexible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have enough material for an hour, which I won't do, but I have enough for 10 minutes too. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here.
So this is the first time, correct?
Yeah.
So part of what Karen is going to do is set the stage for the next 4 Sundays,
Right.
as well as talk to us about that Sunday. I mean,
Right. Well, I think we would use this to say, this is how we can read the Bible. Like, right? This is like, it's an example, right? Of
Yeah.
how you can engage
Mm-hmm.
the part of us that, the part of us that laughs, or the part of us that sees the Bible in a little bit different light.
Particularly
We can even do.
Yeah.
I can even do an intro, and then we can do our drama, and then I can wrap up again. I mean, we've got lots of room to be creative.
As long as it doesn't interrupt your flow, but we can talk about that.
Yeah.
How much does the 4th Sunday, where we're planning to use the white fire process, for the 4th Sunday, we talked about using that for the 4th Sunday. That where do we share this experience after the Reader's Theater? Is that something we want to keep close to our chest and not let them know that this is coming? Or,
I don't know the answer.
Because when they look back, they'll go, this is how we got the first Sunday.
Right.
We experienced what you're experiencing today. Should there be a time? It doesn't have to be. I'm just questioning.
I can go either way with that. Telling them, I don't know if you would tell them on the first Sunday or not. You're going to be giving them a lot of stuff on that first Sunday.
I don't think I would explain. Sometimes I think I would just do it, but then refer back to it.
Well, I think
You're
that's a
saying
healthy
on
idea.
the fourth Sunday, say that this is the same process that.
Oh yeah, I think
created-
that's healthy.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they.
Yeah, that's that power of either leading people forward, because here you're reflecting back, which is a great, and then winds up doing both on that fourth Sunday. I think there'd be a lot of value in that.
If it's being done in Sunday,
Yeah.
okay. I'm not sure if he knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows that.
How to do it.
Mm-hmm. Abyss, are you willing to be part of the Reader's Theater to actually perform? I didn't ask you that before. You can think about it.
That's it. Put her on the spot.
Put her on the spot. Mm-hmm. What about you, Chris?
I don't know. I was trying to be there, but I was also planning not to be there. So.
you might change your mind.
I would say you should go ahead and work on it.
And then we'll find people.
Yeah,
to
we
do
have
it.
to find people.
I'll write it in such a way that it's, I'll try to write it so that it's open. Like I said, some of the crowd things that people don't want to have a particular speaking role, because it's not really named people necessarily, although we have a group of the Pharisees, so we could have, I'm not sure how that'll all play out, but.
Oh, here. So does Jesus have Jesus hardly talks in this.
Well, he does,
He
I
talks
stopped
at the
right
beginning
by
and
the
at
end.
the end.
right, and,
It's the blind man's show. Really.
It's the blind man's show.
right. I mean, I don't know whether, Karen,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you will go farther with the text than where we stopped, which was, we stopped right at 34, and 35 through 41 is Jesus' conversation. That's the resolve.
But you could write it without Jesus in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can refer to him. Jesus, there's not going to be a person portraying Jesus in
Right.
the role.
There wouldn't have to be. There could be, but there wouldn't have
No,
to
there
be.
doesn't have to be. I mean, we'll be very clear about who we're talking about, of course. But yeah. Yeah,
I think I would at least refer
I
to
read the
the.
whole thing because it's easier for the story.
What did you say, Karen?
I think I would at least refer to the end. That he does ask the question, "Do you believe?"
You saying you would refer to the
I
end?
think just to wrap it up, because like leaving it right where it is, where they just throw him out of the synagogue, just kind of like that's kind of like hanging out there,
Yeah. Don't you
which
love
is
that?
fine, you know. Which is why I said that maybe if I did a beginning and then the drama and then the end, I would wrap it up just briefly. I mean, it wouldn't have to take a long time just to say.
You can feel that out as it happens. I
Sure.
think that's fine. If you want to bring that resolve in, that's great. If not, that's okay too.
Okay.
I don't think I will include that in what we're doing.
No, you don't need to. No, I don't think you need to.
Okay.
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 No, she could refer to it.
Yeah, if she wants to do that in your work, that's fine. Okay. That's great. Anything else? That gives me what I need.
You got what you need?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you for your input. Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
If somebody wants to take some pizza with them, they may.
This was a lot of great work. I had fun working through this.
Good.
This is recorded in case anybody wants it.
You recorded it? Okay. All right.
I can send you a link if you want to refer.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Jeff, you know,
Yeah, good. Anybody want any of these white fire workshops?
I'll pick another one. I think I have one, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple there.
Wait,
You have
so
it.
you're gonna be with us all the Sundays? I mean, like, working with us through this?
What I'm going to do is work with you probably that week, because I'll need some time to work, write it. And I figured that just one time the week prior to that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mainly just to get a